Being different isn't easy, especially when the world doesn't understand you. That's something a kid from Florida named Jalen Arnold learned early in life. When he was little, Jalen faced some significant challenges that made everyday interactions more difficult. He experienced symptoms that other kids didn't understand: involuntary movements, compulsive behaviors, and social communication differences. Any of those challenges can be tough to navigate as a kid, but Jalen was dealing with all of them all at once. By the time he was in second grade, Jalen started being bullied at school. The stress made his symptoms worse, which only resulted in more bullying. It was brutal, but instead of shrinking back, Jalen chose a different path. When asked about this time in his life later, here's what Jalen said: God has given me a purpose, and I know that if I try hard enough, I can do anything I want to do. One day, after months of being bullied, I decided I wanted to educate people about respect and bullying. I set out a goal when I was 8 years old that I would one day be on YouTube and television spreading my message of bullying. No way. That same year, Jalen launched the Jalen Challenge, a movement to stop bullying by teaching students how to treat others with kindness and respect. Since then, Jalen has received the Princess Diana Legacy Award from Prince William and Prince Harry. He's partnered with LeBron James and even had his own show on Nickelodeon. He's been widely celebrated for the difference he made. But the most important part, his movement has reached tens of thousands of students, helping create schools where every kid can be themselves without worrying about being bullied for it. And here's what's remarkable about Jalen's approach. He could have easily isolated himself, tried to hide, or just endured the bullying alone. Instead, he made a choice that changed everything. He realized that the very thing causing him pain, feeling different and misunderstood, was something he could transform into connection with others who felt the same way. Jalen understood something that many people, even adults, often miss: the power we have to create the kind of community we wish we had. He knew that having the right people around you could change everything. He didn't try to do it alone. He shared his story, invited others in, and together they built something bigger than themselves. And that leads us to our final week of our Into the Deep End series. Over the past few weeks, we have looked at what it means to go deeper in our faith. We learned that prayer is more than just words. Scripture is more than just a book, and worship is more than just music. Well, tonight we're talking about one more essential part of spiritual growth: community. And not just hanging out or being in the same room. We're talking about authentic, intentional, spiritual community. The kind that helps us grow, gives us strength, and reflects Jesus to the world around us. When I think of an example of powerful, authentic, intentional spiritual community, my mind immediately goes to the early church, the group of believers in the first and second centuries who helped shape what it means to follow Jesus. Many of them had actually heard Jesus teach in person, and some were even original disciples. So you'd think that they had it all together, right? And all figured out from the start. Well, sort of. You see, things started off great. But check out how the earliest church was described in the book of Acts chapter 2, verse 42. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. That's incredible. And certainly, if that's how it started, it must have gotten better from there, right? Not quite. Surprisingly, a large chunk of the New Testament consists of letters written to these early churches. Gracious but gentle reminders to correct the things they were getting wrong. And before we get too judgy, let's remember these were people, real people, just like us. And if we're honest, we don't always get it right either. So to kick things off, we're going to look at the New Testament book of Hebrews. And it was written to a group of Jewish Christians in the early days of the church, believers trying to make sense of their faith in a complicated world. This letter gives us incredible insight into how the early church pursued community. Things they got right and things they got wrong. So let's start in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Have you ever wondered why certain rules exist? Usually it's because something has become such a big issue that it needs to be addressed. For example, at school, the reason that you have to be in class before the bell rings is because the teachers were tired of everyone being late all the time. So when the author of Hebrews says we should think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, it's not just a random suggestion. It's likely a response that something wasn't going so well. In other words, the early church probably wasn't doing a great job of being kind or generous. And let's be real, if you've ever been a part of a group where kindness and generosity are missing, you know how quickly that kind of community becomes something no one wants to be a part of. Well, that's strike one. Strike two is coming in the very next verse, verse 25. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. As some people do. If there was any doubt that the author of Hebrews was calling someone out, that doubt is gone now. Not only was this community struggling with kindness and generosity, but there was enough people that just decided to not show up that it was worth writing a letter about. Now, the good news is that this passage isn't just someone calling out a community for missing the mark. It's also an invitation into something amazing. The author goes out of their way to remind this church that they should be as encouraging to each other as possible because they all have one thing in common that they are looking forward to, and that is Jesus' return. Now, here's the problem. No one knows when Jesus is coming back. All we know is that he was crucified, he was buried, and on the third day, he rose again. Then about 40 days later, he ascended into heaven with the promise that one day he would return in the same way he left. But again, we have no idea when. And neither did the people to whom the letter of Hebrews was written. So in a way, we actually find ourselves in a strikingly similar situation. You see, we are a community of people who are gathered because of Jesus. And yes, we look forward to his return. But we just don't know when that's going to happen. So in the meantime, we have a choice. We can drift into disconnection, selfishness, and apathy, or we can build the kind of community the author of Hebrews was pointing toward. The passage from Acts gives us a snapshot of real community, what it looks like, how it functions, and why it matters. And the passage from Hebrews gives us a picture of what can be lost when we don't make it a priority to maintain that community. Thankfully, the passages also show us a few ideas about community that can help us make sure that we don't fall into the same trap as the church to which the letter of Hebrews was written. So the first idea that I want to make sure that we don't miss is this: community encourages growth. All right, let's be real. Growth does not happen in isolation. It happens in relationships. And that's exactly what Hebrews 10:24 through 25 was pointing to. We are supposed to motivate each other towards love and good works. You become like the people that you spend time with. When someone in your small group shares honestly about a struggle, it gives you permission to be real too. When you see someone choosing kindness over drama, it challenges you to follow their lead. That's the power of community. It pulls each of us forward together. And here's the thing: it goes both ways. Your faith journey can do the same for others. And don't worry, you don't have to be perfect or have all of the answers. Just be consistent in choosing to follow Jesus with others makes a bigger impact than you realize. But growth is just one part of what community offers. Sometimes you need more than encouragement. You need people who will stand with you when things get tough. And that brings us to the second thing. Community provides strength. Following Jesus isn't always easy, and life doesn't always go as planned. Thankfully, none of us was meant to face life's challenges alone. King Solomon, who is known for being incredibly wise, wrote these words in the book of Ecclesiastes. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Think about the difficult moments that you have faced this past year. Maybe it's dealing with anxiety, navigating friend or family drama, or facing pressure to compromise your morals and what you believe. In those moments, our community can provide the strength that we are lacking. Not just physical strength, but emotional, spiritual, and relational strength. We lift each other up when we're down. We show up for one another. God didn't design for us to go through life alone. We're stronger when we stand together. And when we do, others notice. And that leads us to the third thing. Community reflects Jesus to the world. When we live in authentic community, it becomes a picture of God's love that others can see. Think back to the passage that we read in Acts chapter 2. The early church was enjoying the goodwill of all the people. Their community was so compelling that it drew others in. And Jesus himself said that this would happen. Right? Look at John chapter 13. So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will provide to the world that you are my disciples. Real community still does this today. When you include the new kid who feels invisible, when you forgive someone who hurt you, when you show up for a friend going through a hard time, people notice. They see something different. They see Jesus. What if that was true of us? What if your friend group, your small group, or your youth group reflected Jesus so clearly that people wanted to know what made you so different? That's what real community does. It doesn't just help us grow and give us strength, it shows the world who Jesus really is. That's the kind of community we were made for. Not something surface level or just once a week or whenever we feel like it, but the kind that transforms us and points others to Jesus. But now that we've talked about what real community looks like and why it matters, here's the real question. How do we actually build it? How do we move from talking about community to actually living it out? Well, here's 3 ways to turn what we've learned into action. And the first is this: show up for your community. Community doesn't happen automatically. It requires intentional participation from people who decide they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. I challenge you to look for ways to actively engage with the community you're already a part of. Maybe that's your small group, your youth group, your friend group, or even your family. Instead of just showing up physically, show up emotionally and spiritually. What does that actually look like? Well, it's different for everyone, but it might mean speaking up when you usually stay quiet, or staying around and hanging out with your group for a little bit instead of just rushing out. Or maybe it's remembering what someone mentioned last week and asking, how's it going? Or maybe it's choosing to be fully present instead of allowing yourself to distract others or to be distracted by your phone. When you show up fully, you're not just getting something from community, you're helping create the kind of community others want to be a part of. Think about it. The communities you love most are probably the ones where people really show up for each other. Be that person. But showing up for others is only half of the equation. The second thing that you can do, allow your community to show up for you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that for most people, letting others care for you might actually be more difficult than caring for others. Many of us are really good at helping others, but not so great at accepting help. We tell ourselves that we don't want to be a burden, or maybe we assume no one really wants to deal with our problems, or we go out of our way to convince ourselves that we should be able to handle everything on our own. But remember what we learned from Ecclesiastes? 2 people are better off than 1, for they can help each other succeed. Community isn't just about you helping others, it's about letting others help you too. I want to challenge you to practice being vulnerable and honest about what's really going on in your life. And here are some ways to start. When someone asks you how you are doing, actually tell them instead of just saying, I'm fine. Or ask for help with something that you're struggling with. Or let a trusted friend know that you are having a really hard day instead of trying to go at it alone. And accept when someone offers help instead of always saying, nah, I'm good. This isn't about making everything about you or oversharing. It's about being real enough that others can actually care for you the way that God designed for community to work. Remember, when you let others support you, you're not just receiving help, you're allowing the community, your community, to live out their faith by showing love in action. And then once you have experienced both sides of authentic community, number 3, invite someone in. Now that you're both receiving community and giving community, it's time to expand your circle. Expand the circle. I challenge you to look around for someone who seems to be on the outside. Maybe they're new at school, sitting alone at lunch, or just seem like they don't have a solid friend group. Maybe they used to come to youth group but haven't been around lately, or maybe there's someone you used to hang out with a lot, but you haven't included them in your plans recently. Here's your challenge. Invite one person into something you're already doing. It doesn't have to be big or complicated. Sometimes the simplest invitation can change someone's week. And here's a few ideas to get you rolling. Invite someone to sit with you and your friends at lunch. Ask someone new to the youth group if they want to grab food afterwards. Include someone in your weekend plans. Invite a friend who's never been to youth group to come with you. Ask someone to join your study group or your group project, or bring someone along when you just hang out with other friends. The goal isn't for you to become best friends immediately. It's to help someone experience what you have been experiencing. Authentic community where they feel seen, valued, and included. Remember Jalen Arnold from our opening story? He could have kept his anti-bullying message to himself, but instead he invited others to join in his mission. When we invite people into our community, we're doing the same thing. We're saying what we have here is too good to keep to ourselves. And here's the truth. The people who experience the deepest community are usually the ones who are actively creating it for others. So show up. Let others show up for you and invite someone new to experience what real community looks like. Community like this doesn't just happen. It gets built by people who decide to show up, let others in, and make space for one more person at the table. That's what we are called to do. Not perfect community, but real community. The kind of community that makes a difference in people's lives.